All right, here we go. Chapter 23, Modern Flux. I'm calling it New Identities and Old Fears. So we have changes happening in technology, changes in social organization. The city really becomes entrenched by the 1920s. It had been a growing phenomenon in the Gilded Age in the late 19th century, but the modern era, modern means bureaucratic, modern means secular, modern means, what else should we say about it? Science generally. So modern has been coming down the pike, but in the 1920s, we just sort of, everybody calls it the modern era. All right. So we're going to talk about actions and reactions. We're going to talk about this new era, what it means a little bit. We're going to talk about the new woman, the new Negro, and the KKK, which is in some ways a response to both of those deals. All right, new era. Here we go. Return to normalcy, a horrible word, right? Not a real word at all, but it became part of this campaign of Warren Harding. We just want to return to normal life, and we want to return to business being prominent. So if you followed sort of the progressive era, you had all these movements to limit the power of business, and government is the entity that gets in between business and the public. By the 20s, after Prohibition, after World War I, after Woodrow Wilson, Harding tells the American people we're just gonna, right, not heroics but healing, not revolution but restoration. So, more business, less government in business and more business in government. Henry Ford, you can't talk about the 20s without Henry Ford. Automobiles, radical change. Lots of people in automobiles, lots of jobs related to automobiles. What else do we have? We got just a banana. I'm sorry, I'm a silly little person. So we have advertising as a thing. And even though Thornton Veblen came up with the theory of conspicuous consumption in the 1890s, it really becomes a thing for Americans in the 1920s. You express yourself by what you bought, how you drove, what you drove, all that sort of stuff. There's that line in Great Gatsby where Daisy says, "Oh, Gatsby," you know, he's wearing that pink shirt, and she's like, "You are the man, you are the shirt, you're like the man in the ad," or something along those lines. All right, what else we got? We have changes in the way people live. Sorry about the fuzzy picture, but I love the little boy with the old-time refrigerator. We have new products. We have installment purchases. How does it jump 500%? Because there wasn't anything before that. And we have more money being made, except for agriculture. Refrigerators, furnitures, automobiles, radio, can't live without my radio. All this stuff. So this is part of that modern life. Things that it wasn't possible to do before, but now it's possible. Businessman is the hero, and one response of business to increasing labor power is to start giving demands voluntarily. We call this welfare capitalism. The idea is you limit the appeal of unions by making a better working place on your own. There's also scientific management that's coming into the fold. This drives the need for managers. Scientific management is just where you observe a task and you figure out the quickest, best way to do it, and then you make all your workers do it that same way, and then you monitor how fast they're doing it. So you need this mid-level management to monitor all the statistics that you generate in this scientific management. At least that's the idea. So business is becoming important. Business is becoming in education. So we wrap it all together. We got mass production, scientific management, and welfare capitalism. We've got these huge machines with one person doing repetitive tasks, and in some ways the company's treating them better. Business is in control, so it's kind of back to the Gilded Age notion, except for this time you have a more powerful government as a result of World War I and as a result of the Progressive Era. But the idea is keep government out of the way of business. This is just kind of background stuff. It is really important. So We loan the Allies money. They owe us money. Germany owes the Allies money because of war reparations. I hit on this in the other PowerPoint, but we'll just talk about it again real quick. Americans made money through war bonds, getting a return on their investments, and these war bonds paid for the loans, and that's a fairly racy little war bonds image, don't you think? Goodness gracious. In 1924, the wheels fall off the bus, the wagon, the whole thing, and a guy named Charles Dawes, who is from Nebraska. We always hear about him as being Chicago banker, but he was originally from Nebraska. Anyway, he comes in and saves the day and renegotiates the whole deal. It's kind of ridiculous the way he does it, but he does lower German reparations and then starts this whole exchange of loans once again. But it makes the system work until it collapses. When does it collapse? That's right, in the 1920s. At the end of the 1920s, Great Depression, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so here's another thing that's kind of fun. This is kind of like A-level detail. But anyway, Americans had invested in Europe. The European investment helps Germany achieve economic recovery, but the U.S. stock market starts to take off, and that redirects investment. So there's a problem in Germany even before the Great Crash, but the Great Crash exacerbates it, and eventually, right, we see Hitler come to power in this really shaken Germany. So I don't know, that's a little bit more than we're going to talk about in this class, but the 20s and the 30s and the 40s are linked together in kind of cool ways through finance. New women. Not that many people wear new women. Most people maintain their values, but as the quiz question asks, or tells you, or whatever you want to think about it, those women that did change things affected life for everybody. Everybody kind of responded to it. All right, one way is that there's a lot more divorces. This is crazy, but from 1910 to 1928, there's a doubling of divorces, and there's a doubling even before that. So from 1900 to 1928, it's remarkable. And what are we talking about? Basically, not a little bit less than 1 out of 5. So in this class, 4 of you would have had come from a divorce or been around a divorce in the 1920s. It's considerably higher now, but you know what I'm saying. We're just going to skip that one altogether. We're going to jump into flappers because they are typical, or not typical, I'm sorry. They're symbolic, but they're not typical. I love H.L. Mencken. He is a intellectual. We see him in the Scopes trial stuff, but he calls them a somewhat foolish girl, full of wild surmises and inclined to revolt against the precepts and admonitions of her elders. In other words, she has wild, crazy ideas, wild-ass guesses about what she should do, like walk on the edge of a building, and she drives her parents crazy. Smoking cigarettes, all that sort of stuff. Goodness gracious, you smoke in public, that's liberty. And here it is, right? They're saying, you smoke in public, that's liberty. Ha ha ha. And of course, we just had suffrage. So this is kind of an interesting thing. Oh, by the way, it'll also make you skinny. So smoke because it makes you free, and it's smart, and it makes you skinny. All right, good stuff there. One of my favorite images of all time. This guy, what do you think? Pretty good job or pretty goofy job? Anyway, he's making sure that the bathing suit is proper length. This is scandalous in the 1920s. So everybody gets their bathing suits measured as a result of the flappers. All right, the new Negro. We just barely touched on this. This is important though. So the Great Migration brings African Americans out of the South into the North in great numbers. And this is a smaller movement in this time period. In World War II, this becomes a really big movement. But for now, we're talking about these areas. We should also have Omaha in here, but we don't. Moving out of the South into the city. We are going to talk about Omaha as a thing, because you guys should at least know about some of these race riots. This is Nebraska has one. We'll talk about it. So there's a criminal accusation against Will Brown. Probably he didn't do it. Almost for sure he didn't do it. There may not have been an attack, right? But there's an alleged assault Brown is taken to the courthouse. Between 5,000 and 15,000 people burned the courthouse, nearly killed the mayor, took Brown, abducted him. These are the photo ops. It's really quite horrid. You can't see it in here, but Brown's body is covered up, and it's really quite disgusting, and they look pretty damn happy. There's another one in Tulsa. There are really lots of race riots, and it's a response to black population. Omaha saw the black population double in a decade. New York grew considerably in the decade, right? Way faster than white growth, and it freaks people out. So in response to the riots, you get the Harlem Renaissance, and this is a purposeful movement on the part of African American leaders to claim civil rights. Marcus Garvey belongs in this conversation, although he's a little bit special because he's a Jamaican immigrant, but he founds the United Negro Improvement Association in 1917. He creates a Black Star Line, his cruise ship line, in 1919. Talks about the Back to Africa movement. He gets in trouble for various things. He's kind of a flamboyant dude, as you can see. And he gets deported for, I think he gets in trouble for mail fraud. It's not terribly important why he leaves the country. He's radical. He meets with the KKK. He, let's see, what else can we say about him? Ooh, I know. Malcolm X is born in Omaha. Malcolm X's father is a Garveyite, and he's in Omaha spreading this United Negro Improvement Association message, right? So that's kind of cool. That's kind of an interesting connection to good old Nebraska. A. Philip Randolph is the man. He originally supports Garvey, and then he decides that's not really an answer for African Americans, right? So he founds the Messenger, and then he also founds the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. So he's journalist, labor union, trying to improve the lives of African Americans. He's going to be around for a long time. He's the guy who comes up with the idea for a March on Washington. My favorite joke in class is to say, if any of you are considering a back tattoo in your near future, A. Philip Randolph is a damn good choice. Okay. Elaine Locke, he's an intellectual voice of this Harlem Renaissance, and basically what he's saying is that we need to have an artistic movement that goes along with the new Negro living in the North. We need a new identity. Here's an image from the Harlem Renaissance. It's an artistic movement that just wants African Americans to create art no matter what, no matter their circumstance, no matter their standing. There was a professor at Chadron State in the 50s who got his start in the Harlem Renaissance. He's a pretty cool guy. His name, I think, Artess. I'm not positive on that. Anyway, go to the webpage. They just cataloged his collection. Good work by the institution. Okay, so we get these changes, and I haven't talked about Prohibition, but Prohibition is out there. I just assume you guys know about Prohibition. You may not be as aware of the New Women and the New Negro, as it were, right? The Harlem Renaissance. So, in response to this and other things, the KKK goes through a revival. Insert your joke here about this old dude with his weak little flag, about how they have to hold hands to keep straight lines, something along there, but also note it's the frickin' Capitol building, right? This is the KKK in Washington, D.C. in 1925. Can you imagine? Anyway, they're holding the American flag, right? Okay. Freakish. KKK. It starts, roughly speaking, 1915, birth of a nation. It's a northern movement as much as it is a southern movement. They're repulsive, and yet they talk about Americanism. You can't see it very well. Roman Catholic Church is in here. They hate the church. They hate the Catholics. They hate immigrants. They hate moral corruption. They burn flags. They're big in Nebraska. They're big in Colorado. They go on Ferris wheels. They have a dang wedding in in Washington, and get immigration restrictions as a result. It's kind of unbelievable, and I think we're done.